So groceries are way up. There's some groceries that are higher than others, like coffee is extremely high. A lot of meat, proteins are very high. Depending on the supply chain issue, depending on where we get those materials and foods from, will determine how much they've gone up. Building costs, so like to have a new apartment, your rent has not come down, it's gone up. To actually buy a home, costs have gone up, not down. Everyday household goods. Like if you go to your local Walmart and want to buy literally anything, the prices are all up considerably because a lot of those things are imported from places like China or Canada or Mexico. So literally anything that you have in your home that you want to go and buy, if you want to go buy a couch, it's going to be more expensive. If you want to go buy new clothes, they're going to be more expensive. If you want to buy anything, it's more expensive. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Last night, President Trump continued peddling lies to the American people. President Trump promised to lower costs on day one. Instead, he's delivered cost increases and chaos that are wreaking havoc on New York families. Prices for housing, groceries, electricity, and other everyday essentials are all up because of Trump's trade wars and tariffs. An independent study has found that 96% of the cost of President Trump's tariffs have been paid by American businesses and consumers. On average, New York households have paid about $4,200 last year because of Trump's tariff tax. That's money that should have been available to help New Yorkers put food on the table, pay their rent, or cover other essentials. Our state is especially vulnerable to the president's reckless. Our hardworking farmers and vital rural communities who feed our families and power upstate New York's economy are being hit hard. These tariffs are driving up their costs, making it tougher for them to sustain their farms and adding financial strain to communities already struggling to make ends meet. New York's factories and manufacturing jobs are getting hammered as well, from raising prices on critical materials like steel and aluminum to disrupting the supply chain that we rely on. The president's tariffs are putting good-paying jobs at risk. At a time when we should be boosting America's manufacturing and investing our future, these tariffs are weakening our economy, making everything more expensive and making it harder for New York businesses to thrive. But the tariffs are not just reckless. Last week, the Supreme Court confirmed what Democrats have been saying for months. President Trump's tariffs are illegal. In their ruling, the Supreme Court found that the global tariff that President Trump imposed earlier this year under an emergency powers law were unconstitutional. This means that families and businesses were hit with taxes they should not have had to pay. Despite this ruling, President Trump doubled down. After the Supreme Court released their decision, he enacted a new 10% tariff on imports from all countries, and he's now pledged to increase it to 15%. It's unacceptable, unaffordable, and hurting our economy. The American people deserve much better. The chaos has to stop. President Trump must end his catastrophic tariffs once and for all. The illegal tariffs cost Americans almost $130 billion. That's money President Trump now owes back to the American people. I'm demanding that the Trump administration immediately refund small businesses for the costs they incurred due to the illegal tariffs and make sure that these translate to lower prices for consumers. I outlined these demands to Treasury Secretary Bessent this week. New Yorkers deserve better than President Trump's tariffs and cost-increasing chaos. I will keep fighting on New Yorkers' behalf against the president's illegal and reckless actions. Thank you.
Brian O'Neill, WLEA.
Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you. You referenced the $4,000 some dollars that New York State residents are paying more than they did before. I was wondering if you could say in what ways are they paying more? Groceries, gas, where?
All the above. So groceries are way up. There's some groceries that are higher than others, like coffee is extremely high. A lot of meat, proteins are very high. Depending on the supply chain issue, depending on where we get those materials and foods from, will determine how much they've gone up. Building costs, so like to have a new apartment, your rent has not come down, it's gone up. To actually buy a home, costs have gone up, not down. Everyday household goods. Like if you go to your local Walmart and want to buy literally anything, the prices are all up considerably because a lot of those things are imported from places like China or Canada or Mexico. So literally anything that you have in your home that you want to go and buy, if you want to go buy a couch, it's going to be more expensive. If you want to go buy new clothes, they're going to be more expensive. If you want to buy anything, it's more expensive.
Thank you.
Good morning, Senator. It's Atria with WBNG here in Binghamton. You mentioned coffee actually, and we're actually doing a story today on kind of the impact on tariffs on coffee, especially like some of our small businesses and roasters. I wanted to see if you could just kind of expand on that. You know, something as simple as like a cup of black coffee costing about $6. I guess your reactions to that, and how this is kind of impacting some of our local roasters here.
Yeah, well, we have the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that the average cost for a pound of coffee is up 33% from a year ago. So if your coffee was $6, it's now $8. So that is a 33% increase. It's just a constant increase in everyday people's lives that is hard to afford. It's not great. It's not great at all. And you know, a lot of people have coffee every day. And some of the small pleasures of life is to go to your local coffee store, not to make it yourself, but to go out and buy a cup of coffee. Go with your friends. It's part of our cultural norms today. And you might get coffee twice a day. That's money you don't have. If you're spending on average $4 more a day for coffee, that's going to add up in a week. So it's just a lot of money.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Holiday Moore. from
Senator Terry
WPS.
Frank at Media One.
I think Holiday Moore was first and then Terry Frank.
Okay.
Senator, can you explain, if there is an explanation, how he is targeting the blue states and how these tariffs and other policies that have been in place this last year have been especially harsh on New York and other blue states like us?
Yeah, so some of his targeted cuts, which are resulting in higher costs, are to blue states. So, for example, President Trump targeted blue states for childcare costs, and that means literally being able to afford to put your child in daycare is going to go up because the grant money, the funding that would normally come to our state wasn't available, so the state has to make up to it. New York, our agriculture sector has been particularly vulnerable because we are an export of agricultural products. Those tariffs mean we're selling less. So dairy exports, apples, wine, specialty crops rely heavily on access to Canadian markets. Tariff threats raise the risk of retaliation that could shut down New York farmers out of their most accessible export destination, particularly Canada. Also, the costs of other things that we build in New York, like we do a lot of automotive parts. We do a lot of high-tech components. When there's tariffs on steel and inputs for some of that manufacturing, it's going to mean all those manufacturing goes up, and that means their sales will go down. So New York has been hit very hard by tariffs.
Can I just follow up real quick though? Have you and any of the committees there had research done to show that there is a targeted effort to go after the blue states industries? And if so, can you
So
share
most
that?
of the targeting that President Trump has done is through funding streams, not necessarily through the tariffs. What he's done, for example, is cut childcare or cut Medicaid or cut grant programs that Democrats and blue states often use. He also is targeting our infrastructure projects. Like he didn't want to fund Gateway until a judge told him he had to fund the Gateway Tunnel. The Gateway Tunnel is the tunnel that allows the distribution of goods throughout the entire eastern seaboard, and it runs through New Jersey and New York. And so when he cut the funding for that, he was just being malicious towards two blue states. And the child care cuts particularly were cut just to blue states.
Was the I-81 targeted too, in your opinion?
I don't know, was it? Did he say anything about A81 money?
Smaller pot of money that was withheld, but we can get you back.
Yeah, it may well have been. It was a smaller pot of money that he also discontinued. But I am now the ranking member on appropriations for transportation and housing. So I was able to restore a lot of money that President Trump had cut in this last appropriations bill that we just passed. So I can get you the transportation dollars that we sent to New York from that bill as well. Which is why working on a bipartisan basis is one of the best ways to outmaneuver President Trump. When he targets a blue state, if I can work with my Republican colleagues in the Senate to restore that money, it means New York doesn't get harmed, even though President Trump tried to harm us.
Thank you.
Yeah, Senator Terry Frank.
Go ahead, Terry.
Regarding the administration and what they're going to be doing with this windfall that's coming from the tariffs, have they indicated further? I know they're looking at options, but have they indicated further what they're planning to do with it?
Sorry, say that again.
Has the administration indicated what they're going to do with the excess money from the tariffs?
No, he's just said he's going to make, I think he said $13 trillion. What did he say? Yeah, $13 trillion last night with no analysis to support what he said. It's just not true. So I don't know. I mean, what he's done so far with our taxpayer dollars is give tax breaks to the ultra wealthy. His billionaire buddies have gotten the most money out of this administration, and he's lined his own pockets constantly.
Thank you.
Senator, it's Brendan Scanlon with WENY News. I was just curious, following the SCOTUS decision, we saw the president take this alternative approach with Section 122, imposing, I believe it's now a 10% global tariff. That's going to need, as you know, congressional approval after 150 days. Even some House Republicans I've spoken with are kind of skeptical they can get the votes to extend that. If it did pass the House, is it safe to say that's dead on arrival in the Senate?
I'm not sure. I don't imagine there's 60 votes to pass it though. So yes, unless they change the filibuster rules to 51, I don't think there's enough Democrats that would vote for a 10% tariff. And I think there's definitely a handful of Republicans that would vote against a tariff. Yeah, so yes, I agree with you. Dead on arrival.
Thank you.
Hi, Senator. This is Laura Figueroa with Newsday. There have been other calls, Governor Pritzker in Illinois, Governor Hochul recently also issued a statement calling for the Trump administration to reimburse states, reimburse consumers for the tariff money. I'm just wondering, and Trump himself has said that he thinks it's going to be something that's tied up in litigation for years. I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on the prospect of American consumers, New York consumers actually seeing some sort of reimbursement, or what will be the uphill climb to kind of see that money?
Well, we have standing under the Supreme Court decision. So I think we should try very hard. I think the best approach would be businesses to file lawsuits and file them to the Federal Trade Commission because they are supposed to enforce the law. So we should, and I imagine our Attorney General will file a lawsuit. I think it's the best way for us to get our money back.
Thank you.
Hi, Senator. It's Lowell Rose from 13 WAM News in Rochester. We're working on a story about the ice conditions at the Batavia facility for Buffalo. New report from ICE shows that that population is at 745 people. Meanwhile, the capacity is at 650 people. So I'm reaching out to see, has your office heard about overcrowding conditions and things of that nature for the ICE facility in Buffalo? Additionally, have you visited that facility? Are you calling for any action to happen there in regards to immigration?
We have been monitoring the situation. My staff has been monitoring it, and we have been informed that the conditions are horrific, and that we have demanded that they rectify it and make sure there's not crowding and improve the conditions.
Can I follow up? This is Holiday from WAER again. On
Yeah.
that question, we've had 2 detainees that were Upstate University Hospital members released. They've told us about the conditions and confirmed it, but they said that there are very few attorneys able to do pro bono work. And they said the only reason why they got released was because they had union representation and
Oh.
the work of the Upstate Hospital crew that they were employees at. So what, if anything, is being done to help bolster the attorneys and those who could be trained maybe at Cornell and other universities around the country or around the state? Do you know of any discussions or any efforts by your members trying to get that efforted here in the state or across country?
So I've met with some union groups and some immigration advocacy rights groups, and I've urged them to work with some of the not-for-profits that do provide legal services, particularly Catholic charities provide some of the best immigration legal services in the state. So I will look into that to see if I can push Catholic charities and some other not-for-profits, perhaps through the governor, to try to meet the needs of the people who are being held there.
Senator Gillibrand, Anna Goober from WPTZ. With the warmer weather coming up, a lot of people in Plattsburgh, a lot of businesses rely on Canadian tourism that took a hard hit in the last year with the president's tariffs. What is your message to these communities in, rural New York and the North Country area that are struggling so much because of these tariffs and have fear about, what's going to happen if they can't rebound in the next coming season over the next year or so?
So I think they should absolutely try to file a lawsuit through the Attorney's General office, because it's hard to afford a lawsuit on your own. That's probably an expense they could never afford. But I think they should write a letter to our Attorney General asking for support on that. I would also urge them to speak out as best they can so that the constituents around them know that the harms being created are because of these toxic policies by the Trump administration, and that the Republican House members are enabling it. They aren't actually helping to get these tariffs removed and to restore the economies between the United States and Canada, particularly between the North Country and our neighbors in the North. So I would really urge them to tell the local newspaper their stories, make sure people know that when you are complicit and you stand by President Trump, you are harming our businesses and harming families' ability to pay their bills and provide for their children. So I think accountability and transparency is really important right now.
Senator, this is Mark Scheer with the Niagara Gazette newspaper in Niagara Falls.
Okay.
As kind of a follow-up to that, can you speak to, I don't know if you're hearing anything about like a tourism impact? We of course have a pretty major tourism economy here. And we actually were just sent some photos about the Rainbow Bridge going to Canada, and it's basically a trickle if any cars are even coming over anymore. Can you speak to that impact and what maybe we can expect around here this coming spring and summer? I mean, it feels like there's going to be
It's real.
impact.
The Canadians are deeply offended by the horrific statements President Trump has said about Canadians. They're deeply offended that President Trump doesn't consider them an ally and that he has put these tariffs on. And so they don't want to come to the United States. They aren't sending. I've talked to more hotel owners and people who focus on like soccer tournaments for kids and college tournaments where kids from all across Canada would come to the United States to participate in camps and tournaments, and they're just not coming. And so it's been a huge hit to their bottom line. They don't have full hotel rooms. They don't have full restaurants. They've lost a lot of money. And for some, they're wondering if they're going to be able to survive the next season. So it's a huge negative impact. And it just shows how being so hateful to your neighbor is harmful. And it's not making money for us. We're not making $13 trillion. In fact, that's the exact opposite. We're losing enormous amounts of money. So the president's just wrong. And he's lying to the American people when he says his tariffs are working. We know better.
Senator Brian O'Neill, WLEA, can I ask an off topic?
Go ahead.
Steuben County Sheriff Jim Allard says there's been numerous calls from scam artists to Steuben County residents where the scammers are using AI. Does your national strategy for helping combating scams legislation fight that kind of scam?
It does. We will have resources available to give law enforcement better tools to be able to protect against these scams. So AI is one of the big things they're using now. They are allowing AI to replicate the voice of your grandson or replicate the image of a loved one or somehow really mislead a lot of people, particularly our seniors. And so this bill will require the creation of a strategy to evaluate the risk of scams and the proper federal response to them. FBI and other agencies would benefit from this money so that they could go after AI scams.
Is there any, how do they catch them if they're overseas, at least to trace the place that the call came from?
So we do a lot of overseas work through the FBI, but also intelligence services. And if we have data and information that these are foreign criminal networks, which they most often are from all across the globe, we can refer that information to Homeland Security as well as to our intelligence services to try to crack down on them. But the truth is that the FBI has been under-resourced considerably to do this work, and that's why I want to have this national strategy for combating scams to get them a lot more money and to have a big national strategy. Because, you know, what's a senior to do when some, you know, Asian gang, you know, a million miles away has the resources and technology to just fool them and to steal their money? That's what happens all the time. Or gangs from Russia or gangs from, you know, all across the Middle East. Like, it's just, these are international, highly sophisticated criminal networks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you calling tonight or today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.